Welcome to Motherology, an opportunity to discuss all things motherhood, all the ups and downs and roundabouts and crazy. An opportunity for us to grow and tell our stories and become the best mums we can be, not because I'm going to tell you what to do, but because we're going to figure out how awesome we really are. Time. This one is a very precious song, very precious to me, and I'm sure it's precious to anyone that's lost a baby. Whenever you've lost a baby, whether it's at the very beginning of your pregnancy or it's at the very end, or however you've lost your baby. I wrote this song. I started writing this song actually in 2004. I lost 2 babies before I had Caleb. I had Asher, no problems, easy pregnancy, all the things. Thought that's how it is. And then we were like, okay, it's been a couple of years. Let's have Caleb. We had his name. Let's go for it. And I had a very early miscarriage. And I was 6 weeks pregnant with the first one. And I thought, oh, but we were given the name Caleb. We were told we were going to have this baby. And I had gone to a friend's birthday party, and I remember thinking, I had flu, or I had a really bad cold. I was like, I'm really sorry, I'm not feeling well. But I wanted to still go and see my friend for her birthday. And I went, and I went to the loo, and I found blood in my underwear when I went to the loo, and I went, wait, what? And I'd had a confirmed pregnancy test. I was pregnant for sure. My period was 2 weeks late, definitely pregnant. And I started bleeding, and I just went, I don't know what to do. And I went downstairs and went, I'm really sorry, I'm not feeling very well, and had a cold, so it was fine for me to disappear. I went home, and I had a miscarriage. I lost the baby, started bleeding very heavily, and it was really sad. And one of the first people I told was the friend whose birthday we'd been to, or it might have been her son's birthday, but anyway, we were at her house. I was at her house, and I said, I'm really sorry, I actually had to leave yesterday because I miscarried. I was pregnant and I miscarried the baby. She was like, oh, sorry. Oh. Anyway, we had such a fun time after you left, because this happened and then this happened and then this happened, and I was just going, what? I just told you I lost a baby, and you kind of just carried on like it's not a big deal. It was a big deal. I was pregnant and I wanted that baby, and I lost the baby, and now I'm not going to have the baby, and I'd worked out the due date, and I knew his name was Caleb, and it wasn't Caleb because he died. And I was having all of these thoughts while I was on the phone to her, and I thought, why is she being so callous about this? She had kids. She hadn't had a miscarriage. Not at that point. She did call me years later, and she went, I am so sorry. I had a miscarriage, and I now know what it's like, and I should not have treated you like that. I was very grateful for that, but it was a real lesson to me. I just thought, gosh, this is a strange world I'm entering, where something devastating has just happened to me, and I share it, and the response is, oh well. Anyway, I got pregnant again pretty quickly, and after 9 weeks, I started bleeding. And David and I were away for a weekend, I remember, and I went to the loo in a restaurant. I was like, oh, no, I'm bleeding again. We got home, went and had a scan, no heartbeat, the baby was gone. And at 9 weeks, I had a mini labor. I went through a mini birthing process. I had contractions, and I passed tissue. I know people who have had 9-week miscarriages who have seen the tiny baby. They've seen a little hand, and it's full on. Already at 9 weeks, you experience a form of labor, and from then on, for the rest of your pregnancy, if you have a miscarriage, you will have to go through a form of labor to give birth to this child. Now, with both of those miscarriages, I had that first experience of sharing it with a close friend who was like, oh, really? Anyway, it was really funny because you gave us this I was, whoa, what's funny about what I just said? And then 2 other people said to me, well, it was probably your fault because, and gave me various reasons as to why it was my fault that my pregnancies had ended and I had miscarried 2 children. And I felt a little upset, let's say, a little angry at the idea that I was to be blamed for things, by the way, that had nothing to do with the miscarriages that I had had. So first, let me just deal with this. There's a lot of shame and a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding around what miscarriage just is. It's simply, I am pregnant and my baby died. And now I have to pass the tissue that had formed, the embryo that had formed inside me, along with the lining of your womb and any placenta that might have already formed, depending on how far along in your pregnancy you were. And all of that has to come out of my body. Now, you can have procedures in hospital, a DNC, that kind of, they get everything out for you. In my case, I chose, and a lot of women do, choose to pass it naturally. I just felt like it would have been a non-reality if I had had the DNC. There was something about it being so clinical to me that was not something I wanted to engage with. And for some people, it's the best thing ever. Like, it really helps with the process. And for some people, losing a baby in early pregnancy, whether you go through a labor or not, is not as devastating as it can be for others. Everybody's going to experience this differently. But the truth of it is, there's a lot of stigma. There's very little research. I was told after the second one, oh no, we're not going to find out why you're miscarrying until you've had 3 miscarriages. I was like, so I have to lose 3 children for you to find out why I'm losing children? Wow. Okay. I didn't know that it was so common. And I don't think most of us realize it was so common because people won't talk about it. Between 1 in 3 and 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriages. And that's those that we know about. So it's probably closer to 1 in 3. That's a lot of pregnancies. 1/3 of all pregnancies end in miscarriage, and we don't know why. I've had some friends who've had miscarriages whose doctors did find out for them, and sometimes it's as simple as low progesterone levels, and that you just need to take progesterone pills as soon as you find out you're pregnant, and then you can sustain a pregnancy. But unless we do those testings, we're not going to find out until you've had 3 miscarriages why you are losing the babies in the first place. So this song is written around the personal feeling of loss. It's written around the conversation of loss that we just don't seem to have very much. I can't tell you how many women have called me and said, you're one of the only people I know that will talk about this. I just had a miscarriage and I'm really struggling to get over it, or I'm really struggling to accept it, or I'm really struggling to relate to my husband because it wasn't real for him and it was for me, or I don't know what to do, because they'd have no one else to talk to. And I think it is ridiculous that so many of us go through this and we won't talk about it. But one of the main reasons we won't talk about it is because foolish ladies, like the ladies that firstly ignored me and then blamed me for losing my children, we feel shame and guilt and personal responsibility for something that wasn't your fault. Now, in my case, I knew it wasn't my fault. Now, one of the ladies that blamed me, I could tell that it was absolutely not true. She was a very legalistic Christian, and she said I had sinned. I had done something that had caused me to be punished in some way by my child being taken from me, because I had done this, I had been punished for it, and I had lost my child as a result. And I'm like, I beg your stinking pardon. Excuse me very much. What did you just say? I'm, a little bit self-possessed. I have confidence. And so I literally dragged her to another person. And I was like, say what you just said to me. Say it again. Go on, say it. I need a witness. And I made her say it again. And the woman who she said it to was like, what? That's not true. What are you talking about? Anyway, I needed somebody to come in on that. And I knew she was wrong, because the thing she was blaming me for didn't happen until I was actually pregnant with Caleb. And I went on to have Caleb. So clearly I wasn't being punished. It had happened, the miscarriage had happened before the thing she's talking about I sinned in, which I hadn't. It was a job I'd taken as an actress, which she didn't agree with. And so she decided that I was evil, I had sinned, and God was punishing me by making me lose my child. If you've ever had those thoughts towards another person, I do believe we're not meant to judge others. Firstly, don't judge people. Secondly, it was a load of rubbish because it wasn't true anyway. I was pregnant with Caleb, the boy that was born when this thing occurred. It was something that I had prayed through with God. And I just think your own experience of these things can cloud our vision around how we treat other people. And things that have happened to us, we want to find a reason why they've happened. We want to create scenarios that make us feel better about ourselves and about our own lives. And there's some philosophies and doctrines that people will inflict on others and use those to blame that person for why things have happened to them. It is cruel, it is unkind, it is unnecessary, it is unloving, it is in fact hateful. So please don't do that to others. And if that has happened to you, I am so sorry. If it happens to you in the future, grab that person, get a witness, or record them saying what it is in case you're feeling a little wobbly about whether they're right or wrong and you need someone to hear what they said. Just say, I'm sorry, could you say that again? But I'm going to record you this time because I really want to understand what you're saying. If there's no one to take them to that you trust. And refute it. Refute the nonsense. I don't believe in that. I do not believe in you did this, so therefore you're being punished and this is how God's punishing you. I'm sorry. I have a very different view of who God is. I think there's a Bible verse that says that perfect love casts out all fear, and fear has to do with punishment. God doesn't punish us so that we'll be afraid of him, so that we do as he says and not sin. Anyway, the other person that said I had caused a miscarriage she said that I had been jumping around too much. And thanks for the advice, but it was not the reason I miscarried. Not in the slightest. I had not been jumping at all, and I had not been engaging in any strenuous activity that is on the do not do list when you are pregnant. I do believe horse riding is on there, but there are plenty of people who are expert horse riders that can continue horse riding while they're pregnant for various reasons. They've built up the muscles. Anyway, there are so many things and it's mostly because we shroud pregnancy and we shroud motherhood and we particularly shroud miscarriage in an enigmatic mystery. It's mysterious. We shouldn't go there. Yes, we should. Why are we not doing medical research to understand why women miscarry so much? Are you aware that there are millions of women currently grieving the loss of a baby that she miscarried around the world right now? That's happening right now. And a lot of them are blaming themselves because somebody else blamed them and they're not me. And they don't go, excuse me, shut up. Most women are walking around going, oh, it was my fault. It was my fault. I should feel ashamed. I should feel ashamed. We could go really deep here. We're going to go deep into this issue around how women see themselves as we progress in the album. But it's a huge issue. How we see ourselves determines how we love ourselves, and how we love ourselves determines how we love others, including our families. It's a big problem that a lot of women around the world have, and we really must address. So, when it comes to miscarriage, I'm a big advocate in let's talk about it. Let's get rid of the mysteries. Listen, there was a mystery until the late 1800s. That's only about 140, 130 years ago. It wasn't then. Maybe it was a little before then. I might be exaggerating slightly, but it was the 1800s before we discovered that women play any part in the conception of a child. It was considered until that point that men carried tiny humans around in their brains that were ejaculated into women who were the fertile soil in which that child that had been in the man could grow and be birthed. We were simply a petri dish, a vessel. That was the common belief until as recently as the 1800s. So there has been so much mystery surrounding pregnancy and women and miscarriage and. The Greeks used to believe that period blood could cause ships to sink. I'm not kidding. We really have to dispel and debunk all the nonsense around who we are, particularly to ourselves and for ourselves. We not only provide the egg and the womb and the lining and all the things that need to grow the child, we birth the child, we can feed the child if we're lucky or, we want to. We have the ability to grow and nurture humans. And when we lose them, it is devastating for most people. For some people, again, it's not such a big deal because they don't see that the pregnant state as something to be grieved if it is lost. That's very unusual, but it is a thing. And I have met many women who are like, yeah, no, I had this many miscarriages. No big deal. It was a big deal for me. I had 2 before I had Caleb, and then I actually had another miscarriage before I had Zoe, after Peniel. And I was in the States then, so I needed to have another 2 here for anyone to research why I was miscarrying. Don't get me started, okay? So this song, Time, is exploring grief. It's exploring loss. It's exploring all the things around the loss of potential. Because that's what miscarriage is. It's the loss of a potential life. Someone who could have walked around in the world and been your child. Someone that could have done wonderful things and fallen in love and enjoyed playing soccer or been really good at cooking or, really insisted that they would only ever wear pink shoes. You just don't know. They could have been anyone. And it would have been wonderful to have met them. It would have been such a privilege to have been their mother. And that opportunity was taken away for whatever reason. And that is pretty devastating. Now, I have 2 amazing things that happened to me because of losing these babies. I do believe that good can come from the worst things in life. I do believe that we can learn some of our most extraordinary life lessons in the middle of great loss. I do believe that pain and, honestly, suffering can make us into a victim, or it can teach us extraordinary things that inform the rest of our lives and make us much better people. I like to glean the good. I like to be shown and to look for the ways in which this can benefit me and others. So when I lost those first 2 babies, I started writing the song all the way back in 2003-04 when it was happening to me. I had Caleb in 2005, but on January the 3rd, 2005, so at the very beginning of the year. So for 9 months of 2004, I was pregnant. And I wanted to reflect on what this means. And I realized that time wasn't changing me, but circumstances were. I think you can stay in a state of grief your whole life. I think you can lose someone precious to you and you can never get over it. I think you can get stuck in feeling like a victim when something terrible, terrible happens to you. Instead of processing the grief of it and understanding yourself better and learning from it and moving forward, you can get stuck in grief. You can get stuck in a victim mentality of, why should this happen to me, etc. Don't want to go into that too deeply because it's a very dark and difficult place. But if you are going to stay there, which I did for a little bit, which you must to process grief, you must grieve. You must actually grieve to process the grief. You can't pretend something bad didn't happen if it did affect you deeply. But I found myself going, oh, time changes nothing when it comes to love, if you love truly, if you really truly love 100%, if you love sacrificially, you love beautifully, then it doesn't actually change anything. Circumstance changes things. Circumstance changes how I might be able to physically relate to somebody I love because that they might have been removed from me, but I love you nonetheless. And I found myself saying, time changes nothing. I'm going to love these children forever and ever. Even though I don't get to carry them, even though I don't get to birth them or feed them or nurture them or watch them grow or parent them, I will love them forever. I will love these children forever. But the circumstances of this loss means I don't get to have the opportunity to raise them. That's what the first lyric is about. Even though I long for them, even though I wished they had stayed with me, I am grateful for the life they now get to live in heaven, because I had this incredible encounter. I was sobbing my literal heart out. After the second miscarriage, I was feeling like a victim, and in the correct sense. Why? Now, I had some big questions for God when I was younger. And one of the main questions, which I will return to in another song, was, why did you make me a woman? I am a leader, I'm confident, I'm clever, I can do all kinds of things, I like science and maths, and I'm a woman. And there's so many things I have as gifts that I can't use in the world because I've been raised in an environment, in a town, in a church, in a family that says women aren't able to be as accomplished as men. They can't lead like men can. They can't do things that men can do. So I used to be so angry with God. Not the way I was raised or the place I was raised in, but I was angry with God that he made me a woman. Like, what were you thinking? What a ridiculous thing to do. I got that straight when I was around 17, which was good. He told me, I don't make mistakes. I gave you all those things for a reason. Now figure it out. And I was like, oh, sorry. Sorry, God. Sorry for getting so angry. Not going to do that again. I lied. I did it again. But what I did do in that moment where I was still a little angry about being a woman was I prayed. And for me, prayer is a very honest communication with God, back and forth. Honest conversations where I will say how I really feel. And I really felt that God couldn't understand me and how I felt in that moment, because God is presented as a male to us as humans. We have this image of God that he's a dude, because Jesus was a man. He was a man. He lived on earth as a man. And so I said to him, Jesus, you were a man. You've never had a miscarriage. You've never been pregnant. How can you know what it feels like to have a life inside you that has suddenly gone? All the potential of the rest of their life has disappeared from my being. And I felt that child inside me. I was pregnant. My body was changing. I knew I was pregnant. Not just because I did a pregnancy test, my body changed. I felt it. I loved that child. And you don't know what I feel. And I got angry, and I said that, and I collapsed in tears, and I felt a physical arm go around my shoulders and put from here, hand on here, and I felt the physical presence of God. I couldn't turn, and there's Jesus sitting right next to me, but he was sitting right next to me. It was physically felt, not seen. And he said, Jessie, I do understand. I lose children every day. My whole life changed. I honestly am amazed every time I hear the voice of God. Because yes, don't worry. I'm not saying God's a woman, but I'm saying God is not a man, that he should be mocked. Very clearly, Scripture says God is not a man. But we say he. I'm saying he because that's what we're all used to. But God is not a man. So Jesus was a man, but God is not a man. So I changed my attitude so utterly in that moment, because Jesus told me that he loses children every day. I was like, oh, my heart broke. My heart broke for God. My heart broke for his losses that he goes through every day. Literally makes me want to cry now. I now know what it is to lose children. And it made me so much closer to God, because God loses children every single day and experiences the reality of that loss every single day. And my heart broke for him. And we're told in Jesus' prayer in John 15:17 that that his desire for us is to be one with the Father as he is one with the Father. That's his main prayer for us, that we would be one with him. And understanding someone is one of the quickest ways to become one with them, to truly know them and love them, to truly know them and understand them. And I suddenly had this understanding of what God goes through every day. And I went, oh, you care for me. You care for this miscarriage because you understand it. You understand what I'm going through. It was such a profound experience. I am so grateful for it, and I couldn't have had it had I not lost that baby. And it's partly why when I was then accused of being the reason that I'd lost the children, I was able to say, stop right there. Because I had reconciled so much of my grief and loss in the love that I had experienced through it, that I was able to stand confidently. So that really, really rocked my world in a beautiful way. It was the coupling of, I don't make mistakes. I made you a woman on purpose. I wanted you to be this. I wanted you to be full of all these leadership attributes and confidence and abilities and gifts and be female. Where on earth does it say in scripture that you cannot be all these things? It doesn't. It actually doesn't. Another topic for another time. And that the experience of feeling the motherly nature of God saying, I lose children every day, and how heartbreaking that is. And of course, it's heartbreaking for fathers. Miscarriage is a very different experience for men, which I can't speak to, except that I know that a woman feels it in her body and a man doesn't. He feels it for his wife, and he feels the loss of the potential, for sure. He feels the physical loss that his wife has to go through. But for a woman, it is visceral. It is physical. It is messy. It is bloody. It is very real. And the other thing that I learnt through this process, I think it was only after we lost the third baby that we really sat with that and went, what happened to these kids that we lost? And I can't honestly remember where we heard this from, but somebody said to us, or we read some book that was like, you know what, if you've lost a baby for whatever reason, you should give them a name. You should find out, pray about what gender they were, or you might have had a feeling about what gender they were, and give them a name. Because if they're in heaven, walking around nameless, then that's a shame. They should have a name. So we named our babies. We named them Joseph, Noah, and Lois. And we released them into God's care. And I had this is the second experience that really changed my life. Sorry, this is a long one, but it's an important one. And for those of you that experience miscarriage, I really, really hope that this is speaking to something of your experience, and that you feel less burdened by responsibility and guilt and shame, or that you have more words to speak to other women that are going through this as well. But in 2014, my mother-in-law experienced a brain aneurysm, a very, very serious brain aneurysm. And it left her in a coma for many months. She came out of the coma and was in a vegetative state for a total of 3 years before she died in 2017. She died on Good Friday, 2017. And I had a remarkable experience the day she died. Again, to do with grief and loss. I had been praying, we'd all been praying for her healing for 3 years. And I felt like God had said to me that when I can see mountains from my bedroom window, and there's a particular 3 peaks that looked like my mother-in-law lying down, and she was always lying down because she was either in a coma or in a vegetative state. And I felt like the Lord said to me, when the sun rises over those mountains, I'm going to heal her. And you know, the earth tilts, and so the sun rises in different places every 6 months. It kind of goes from this extreme to this extreme and back again over the course of a year. So every 6 months, the sun is going to rise over these mountain peaks and then move on from them. And then 6 months later, it's coming back and then move on and then come back. And 6 times it had risen over these mountains, or 5 times it had risen over these mountains. And on the 6th time, the sun rose over those mountains. She died that day. And God had healed her, but not in the way I was expecting. I was expecting her to get up off her bed and for her brain to start functioning fully again and to start communicating and talking to us about what she'd experienced in the last 3 years. And she didn't. She died. And we were all devastated. But I knew that God had said he was going to heal her. So I was like, well, I guess she is healed. She's fully healed. If she's with him, she's fully healed. And we were all praying, the 6 of us, David, myself, our 4 children, we were all on our bed, all huddled together, just praying and crying. And in the middle of praying for comfort for our family, the veil parted and I saw David's mother arrive in heaven. I didn't see a boat, but she stepped off a vessel over water onto shore, and there was a bank full of people, all there to meet her, people that she had known. Everyone looked extraordinary. It was like a vignette, so I could only see what I was seeing, and then the rest of it was all kind of blurred and coloured in a little. But what I could see was her arriving looking fabulous in a head wrap and full, it was like a knee-length Nigerian outfit, dark red, really beautiful. And a lot of people there to meet her, friends and relatives from all races and cultures, people that she'd known throughout her life. And then this woman comes running down the hill that they were all standing on, this bank next to this river they were standing on. And it's my grandmother, who was very upset with me for marrying my husband. She was rather racist, but she did love Jesus. And she's there, and she comes down this hill. I'm, as you can tell, I'm kind of skirting over that issue, very quickly moving on from the fact that she was racist and a Christian. It's a big problem we have, but we need to address it. But now is not the time. And she yells to David's mother, "Victoria, it's so wonderful to meet you." And she gives her a big hug, and she goes, "Does anyone mind if I show her around? Can I be the one to show her around?" And all the people who were there to meet her said, no, it's fine. So my racist grandmother takes David's Nigerian mother, and she goes, come with me, come and meet the children. And I knew in that instant that my grandmother had been raising her great-grandchildren, the children I had miscarried, in heaven. And she was going to take their grandmother, David's mum, to go and meet them, to go and meet Joseph and Noah and Lois. And my grandmother's name was Lois. We named our last baby that we lost, we named her Lois after my grandmother, because there had been some, let's just say, interesting reconciliation that had happened after Grandma was very angry with me for marrying David. But she did die soon after I married David, and there was a reconciliation that happened, and we named that last baby Lois in her honor, and she had been raising baby Lois and the 2 boys, and everything changed. I just went, I have 7 children. I don't have 4 children. I have 7 children. 3 of them are in heaven and 4 of them are here. I have the privilege of raising 4 of them. And those that have gone before me have the privilege of looking after my children until I get to meet them too. And when I pass away, I'm still following God and I'm still on my way to heaven. I will get to be with those children and spend the rest of eternity with them. So I hope this is encouraging to you, and I hope that last bit of the song makes sense, where I'm talking about mummy and daddy and grandma, because they're the ones that have gone before us, my husband's parents, and my grandmother. So clearly I've seen them in heaven and seen them with these kids. This song is meant to encourage you. It's meant to lift you up. It's meant to help you grieve. It's meant to help you cry. It's meant to help you understand what you've been through. It's meant to help you have hope. It's meant to help you draw you closer, help draw you closer to love, to being loved, to knowing that all is not lost, but you indeed lost the chance and privilege of raising that baby. And I am so sorry. I am so sorry for that loss in your life.